an attorney? How many know that I went to school in Europe? I did. My father was a military brat, or my father was in the military, was a military brat. My parents sent me to, instead of going to a Department of Defense school, I went to the Dutch school system. So I actually grew up in the Netherlands. Not many people know this. But in Europe, in 6th grade, they determine your career, right? And they make a decision about you in 6th grade as to whether you're going to go to the higher levels of education, if you're going to go to vocational. There's a lot of ranges, but ultimately, unlike the States, where you can do whatever you want, you can go to community college. If I want to be a doctor, I can be a doctor. Doesn't matter my background. If I've got enough drive and enough time, I can make it happen, right? Well, that's not how it works in Europe. So when I was in 6th grade, do you know what the recommendation for me was? Something called Haushoudskool. Basically, I was destined to be a homemaker. Seriously. Because I struggled between the languages back and forth. Back in the States, coming back to the States, coming back to the Netherlands, back to the States. I struggled. We now know that children who grow up bilingual in different school systems takes much longer to get to their peer level, but they didn't at that time. So had we listened to them, I was destined to be a housewife. A homemaker. There's nothing wrong with a homemaker. Just make sure that I make that clear. That is an awesome way if that's where you want to go. But that should be my choice, not an education system. So flash forward from that time to basically, God, I would have been, what, 9, 10 at that time? So someone was making a decision about my life when I was 9, 10 years old. So fast forward to age 43. I'm one of the youngest female general officers. I own my own law firm, finished law school. I think I went a little different of a direction, right? What was the difference? The difference was that I had someone who believed in me and fought for me back then. He said, no, you don't understand. We've got different plans for her. She can do this. She just needs an opportunity. I was lucky, and I had a pit bull for a mom. And they gave me an opportunity. And as a result of someone taking a second look at me because someone advocated for me, my life turned out way differently. So now I want you to take that to your own formations. There are people in your formation who don't think they can do what they have to do. They think that they're not smart enough. They think they're not good enough. They think they've got all the obstacles in the world. Well, so did Mother Teresa, but she never complained. She just did it, right? But it makes a difference when someone believes in you. And so be the person that helps that method star become the shining star. You have that capability. And then, regardless of your MOS, regardless of what branch you're in, you have to understand, not just if you're the personnel folks up here, notice they're sitting together too. I don't know what that is. Well, there's two back there too, but I'm just saying. Understand the enlisted and officer career. You can get anything in life if A, you don't care who gets credit, and B, you help enough people get what they want. Who said that? Colin Powell. Man, you guys are seriously going to have to expand. Colin Powell, right? If you don't understand the gates that the enlisted that you work with need to go through, you don't understand the gates that the officers you work for go through, how do you affect them? How do you help them? Understand what they need to do, educate them what you need to do, and we'll be a better organization possible. Right? Go up. All right. So here's your opportunity to ask any question what you want. Non-attrition, I don't care. Go ahead. We'll be here a long time otherwise.
Madam Chief Wolf, my comment is, at least for the signal warrants, there's a new requirement that says in the next fiscal year, each one has to have a TS clearance. And that process is broken. It's taking anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years to get a renewal done, and I'm not even sure the time it takes for a new one. But in that time frame, so you put in for your clearance, you get up to 2 years to get your clearance. There's only 2 schools a year for most of these signal months, and they're 6 months a month pretty much. So you're looking at 3 years before you can even get into the school. Another 6 months for the school. So it's getting close to 4 years. I don't know if you have any influence on the security clearance.
I like to think I'm all powerful, but, Chief, if you can make some comment, no, if you could write down some things, and I'll go back and look at some issues. Here's what I know. For those who don't know, I also deployed as the Deputy 2 in charge of also the SSO, the security clearances, right? I don't have a traditional career path. I don't know what it is I want to do when I grow up, so it's okay. You're right, the clearance process is broken, right? But that is at levels above our state. Unfortunately, when they freely give our data out to, well, I don't know, ISIS, it's a concern. So part of that process is the system that they had to do the conversions on so that we secure all of our data again so our SF-86s and 86 Charlies doesn't go over to overseas, right? There are some ways around it, and it depends on the schoolhouse, and this is maybe where we have to have a conversation with the J2, the state SSO, and some of the schoolhouses. You can grant an interim security clearance, right? So easier at the S level, at the secret level, assuming you have a squeaky clean background. So we do all the checks, we look at your SF-86. The senior intelligence officer of the state can sign off on an interim clearance for you. Right? TS has become a little bit more difficult because of the requirements. We can do interim TSs. It requires, I believe, a general officer signature. However, the issue is the schoolhouse. So some schoolhouses will not accept a student with an interim TS. Because part of an interim TS, you have to have, think about this, this is not a mobile skip, but you have to have certain read-ons, and those read-ons for compartmentalization require an actual TS. So depending on the school requirement, we may be able to work with the schoolhouse. We can get some data to allow for interim TSs, and we need to work through the interim TS side of it. Where are my intel warrants in here? Make sure we talk about this. I'll be seeing you again this afternoon, so you're not done with me. But that's an excellent point, so let me get you an answer back. I don't have a full answer. I don't know that I can solve it, but that is sort of the prompt. So Chief, I can work on that. Unless you have an answer on that.
No, the TS clearance and all, that's going to be the issue for the Sigma cyber more and more, so we'll have to work through those issues and kind of dig a little bit deeper, just research on this. It's like it's affecting more than just us, it's affecting the 54, so it's either higher echelons than us.
Well, and some of it is not even the schoolhouse. Some of it is the three-letter agencies that they partner with. Having lived in that sort of odd Tom Clancy world, a lot of the agencies that do some of the construction are not agencies that accept interns. They run a different route for their clearances. I mean, it still goes through OPM, but they have a little bit of a different route than we do on the military side. So I owe you an answer to see if there's something we can do with that. Any other ones?
Morning, General. Chief Barnes. The cyber protection team, so kind of a two-pronged question about that. I know that it was, kind of a major national struggle to get a team into our state, but considering that there's so many positions in there that we already have vacancies in our formations, I guess the first part of my question is, what do you think the risk is to our current force structure? Is the risk cannibalizing our current force structure to fill that CPT? And conversely, if we're not able to fill that CPT, do you think there's a risk that CPT could disappear at some point?
So let's start with the first one, cannibalization. One of the questions I asked in preparation of this is, what are the opportunities for conversion, and where are our weaknesses, right? The reality is there's not a lot of conversion opportunity. And so we know that we're probably not going to lose a lot of our warrants, unless you've got that very narrow defined skill set. We're not going to see a mass exodus to what now is the new, high-speed, low-dry, we got a cyber protection team, right? Because everyone is now onto the cyber bandwagon. For those of us who deployed before, we've understood the cyber threat all along. It's just now the civilian world is starting to actually be made more aware of the attempts, right? So I don't know that we're going to have a huge amount of issues with filtration out of our current ranks to fill those those. I'm not gonna be able to reach in necessarily and grab one of the single warrants and put them in, right? Unless you, like I said, very rarely you need a very narrow criteria. The reality is with any force structure discussion, you have to remain relevant, right? And Minnesota's been very lucky. That the force structure that we have has allowed us, although at an increased op tempo, has driven dollars. There are states who have not been able to maintain their strength, which allows for the increase in force structure, which allows for increased opportunities for deployment, which sends all the money back to the state for the updated equipment, the updated training, the school's money. Anyone who's gotten tagged for deployment knows that the money spot, spigot turns on as soon as you get that NOS, right? So as soon as you get that notice of sourcing, that's not state money. That's federal money. And so force structure, when you talk about a CPT and we look at where money's going to come from to help keep our state relevant, that is where right now our biggest concerns are as a national security interest. It is not just the national level in regards to our international level of cyber, but the state level as well. So I actually wrote a paper at War College about Title 10, Title 32 issues in regards to cyber and state response, and how we really hadn't learned our lesson from Katrina. It's a really riveting read, okay, not really, but the point is we didn't learn our lesson back then about the inherent authorities of the National Guard and what only we can do versus what the federal authorities can do. And that CPT gives us state leverage. Now, there's laws about what a CPT can and can't do, right? But those are, like lawyers, it depends. It's very nebulous, right? And so the ability to have those teams is very, for lack of a better word, sexy to our politicians. And we need them when we talk about our international missions, right? And we need them for our state defense. So having one drives money to the state. That said, our danger if we cannot fill them is that they'll find someone who can. And so it comes back to recruiting. Not just recruiting for the sake of a warm body, but the sake of someone who's capable, I got you over there, Chief, the sake of, nice, for the sake of actually someone who we are going to be able to develop and grow. My bigger concern is, that's a very, it's not up there anymore, that's a very specialized field. How do we grow you and keep you engaged? What happens when the threat changes down the road and we have to evolve to something else? I don't have a crystal ball, but if we don't fill it, and there's lots of discussions about how we're going to fill it. I mean, it's hard enough to get something like when I was in the RSG, a mobility award. Who knew that would be a hard thing to get, right? So then when you start adding something specialized as that, you're right. You're very right in that there should be a concern about what happens if we don't fill it, but I don't see the concern yet in regards to filtering in order to fill it out of the ranks. Any other ones?
Yeah, man. Some of these problems, Chair through Jenkins, some of these problems that you're talking about already exist in the MI Corps. And some of them we're talking about Title 32 versus Title 10 or maybe even Title 50. That's really relevant when you're talking intelligence oversight and MI soldiers and officers being able to do their job either in training or in real world situations. Some of these lessons we've already learned. As you can see with the numbers for one officer, same with the recruiting. So I think we're already seeing some of that right now in the MI Corps, which is something we'll talk about later.
I'm asking if you already read my notes for this afternoon because I actually addressed that issue. Because I see it on the domestic operations side, and I will tell you as an MI Corps, we suck at learning the lessons and using those to the state side. We have not managed a way for that knowledge base to continue. And so, in that particular regard, you're right. But with anything else, when we fail to look forward, when we fail to anticipate the needs and the threats and adapt accordingly, talking about national security, right? I mean, that applies to all spectrums of management. But you're right, that is absolutely a problem that we have on the MI side. The other problem that we have on the MI side, which is easier for the MI than when you talk officer enlisted than on the warrant side is, I hold 4 branches, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. I have that ability to do that. Warrant officers do not. We prize our ability to be very technically and specifically focused. How many knew that a general officer does not wear a branch? I didn't know that. Do you know why? Because you're literally a generalist, right? I have no specific core anymore. You, however, when I look at you, you have a very specific core. You have a very specific set of knowledge that is so detailed that you probably know it well. Right? So, you know, every regulation you're supposed to know when I walk up, and if not, you know where to go. I'm like, I gotta get back to you, right? And so you're right. The MI at least has some other opportunities to grow from other branches in. We also need to do a better job as a warrant officer corps, however, targeting those individuals early enough. When we talk about career development, when we talk about recruiting and retention, what's the last branch group that we talk about? It's the warrants. I came to the state as a baby captain, maybe an older captain, I don't know about that. But we've been talking about warrant officer management and warrant officer recruiting and developing the warrant officer and warrant officer strength plans and warrant officer development plans, and you'd think we'd have it figured out by now. But we just keep talking. Right? Now there's changes that are occurring and they're positive and I'm seeing. The fact that you guys are doing this again is incredible. Because it means you're becoming stronger as a corps and a larger and stronger voice and advocate in the state. But remember what I told you your job is when it comes to your senior officers? It's educating, right? You will be forevermore an educator. And you have to be able to lobby and explain and teach the specifics of your corps as well. Because guess what? The light at the tunnel for me, I can see it. But there'll be someone new coming up. So what are you doing to that young second lieutenant, that young E5, E6 who maybe isn't going to the warrant, so that you prepare them when they become the next sergeant major, when they become the next general officer, that they don't struggle as much with the concept of a warrant officer. Right? What are you doing to look each one of your enlisted folks, because you're straddling both worlds, to say, hey, I know you're an E4 right now, but you've got some skill sets. I'm going to stay in touch with you, because I think as soon as you hit that EPS for E5, you and I need to start working on that paperwork for warrant officer. Because I've been maintaining that relationship, that mentor relationship with you, before you are on anyone's radar. Right? Because here's the secret dirty little news about OCS. No one is looking at the E4 for OCS. They're thinking E5 is 6. But if you start early enough, especially you W1s and W2s who will be here for a while, and you start targeting them, you start talking to them about what the warrant officer corps does, what they can bring to the table, and how they're going to be an asset in your organization, you can help drive that. That's not going to, I can stand up here and say recruit, recruit, recruit. It ain't been doing any good, right? You guys, however, you're the ones that are in contact with them on a day-to-day basis. And that'll help take care of those 2 problems that we just discussed. Any other ones?
I have a question about the managing warrant officer duties and positions. We have a lot of branch managers in this room. So trying to, within the brigade commander, as far as what discussion we have with the warrant officer branch manager for moves to man on this warrant officer disposition, what's that relationship like? And how can these branch managers engage here and the seat commanders and that dialogue with new people?
Right, so for those of you who know, I don't hold back any punches. It sucked. Simple as that. First time I had any conversation about career management or figuring out what I was supposed to do with these warrants in my organization down at the company level. The RSG is kind of weird. It doesn't have battalions. It has 8 companies that don't even do the same thing. They all do different things, right? And so within those companies, there were warrants. So I had to go, okay, well, who are all these people and what do they do? And what's their next step? That's basic taking care of people, right? Well, I'm not quite sure what I do with these people. So how do you get a don't know, the Senior Officer Career Board manages majors and above, and W4s and above, right? Okay. But they have their own page, the W4s and above. So if you're W3 going to W4, it does not occur until it gets through and vetted by the Senior Officer Career Board work group, which occurs at the division level. We all pile in there. And then it goes to the actual Career Board, so the Senior Officer Career Board, where the moves actually become solidified. But before you even get to the work group, your major subordinate commanders, because it's chaired by the O6s, the chief of staff at the division or at the Joint Force Headquarters level, and then either the DJS or the ATAG, the director of the Joint Staff or the assistant or adjutant general will sit in on. But there has to be consensus in that room as to what happens. If you are the 06 and you do not understand how to get the 3 or the 4 to get to the 5, and when you can turn on those branches, it makes it hard to advocate. Chief Knudsen was very awesome. So when Chief Knudsen came on board, he immediately made it a priority to go visit all of the major subordinate commanders. So he and I sat down and we had a discussion about, okay, here are all the warrants I have. Here's where they're at. Here's what's coming in the pipeline. Here's where we should move them around. Here are some of my concerns I have as a major subordinate commander, and here's the things that I get rated on by my boss. How can we help each other? But it took the two of us to sit down, and up to that point, I don't really knew that I fully understood what to do. I knew how to call around. I knew how to ask, but I didn't know exactly yet how to manage that career at that board level. So branch managers are extremely critical. You are input. You are not the decision-making authority. But remember when I talked about educating? So the officer corps, the officer corps has branch mentors as well. So I was the log branch mentor for the officers. I was the branch mentor for the AG when I was the G1. You make recommendations based on, you look at who's in the field, you look at all the branch officers out there, you figure out where they're at, you figure out where they've been, who needs command, who needs the school. You look at the order merit list, and you try to help manage their careers. You reach out to them, but you will be more effective if you're reaching out to your branch mentors as well. Right? Now, again, you're smaller groups, that makes it easier, but when you've got, 13,000 soldiers in this state, of which, 3,000 are officers, it makes it a little bit harder to start dealing with individuals. The branch mentor, however, goes to the 06, because what happens with 06s is we get this. We got so much going on, and I have these paragraph and line numbers. I'm not always looking at what's over at Joint Sport Headquarters. I'm not always looking at what's at 1st Brigade. That might be the best place for you to go next, right? And so that branch mentor calls up the 06 and says, hey, sir, ma'am, I want to talk to you about, Chief Schweitzer. I see that he's been doing X, Y, and Z. He's been there for this amount of time. In his career progression, though, in order to be a successful W5 eventually, we need him to do this, or this should be on his horizon in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, hopefully that solidifies what you've already been talking with your leadership chain about where you want to go. And now, all of a sudden, the 06 understands, oh, I've got to do something about moving you out. Okay, that makes more sense. You might be, where's my cab, folks? You aviator crew chiefs, you don't like going anywhere outside of that cab. But sometimes, we got to move you out of there. Because that's what we need to do in order to develop you and grow you and keep you going. Because if we keep you in the same organization, if all you've ever done is the RSG, if all you've ever done is the cab, you are not going to be as rounded as I need you to be at the higher levels, right? Yes, you are a specialist, but you have to be also a specialist at a certain time at a 25,000-foot level. Does that make sense? So you should know your branch mentor by name. On the positive side, your branch mentor should know you by name. Good, not because you're having trouble. prayers. Is it possible? Yes. But I will tell you, it's very much like the officer ranks. If you get to a W3, you've done good, right? Anything above that is bonus and gravy. It's the same thing as lieutenant colonel. Lieutenant colonel, you had a great career. After you get above that, awesome. But it doesn't mean that you're a superstar. Doesn't mean that you're a bad officer if you don't. Okay? Just means that there was a different. Remember when we talked about luck? It's when what? Opportunity and preparedness meet. Right? There's a recent article about luck. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of where you get where you are is luck. It's being ready. It's being ready to go. It's having the right senior mentors. It's having the right people who can make the right box on your OER because they happen to have rated before a couple of W4s. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. It's the right board. But you influence that luck as well to a certain extent. Right? So branch mentors are extremely important. But your 06s, them knowing you and what you want is important too, because at the end of the day, if the branch mentor says you should do they want the board to do this, and the 06 says, I want you to do that, guess who wins? The 06 does. And the truth of the matter is, even in our state, when 07 wants something, and the 06 commander wants something different, unless there's a really, really, really good reason why not, we tend to defer to the 06 commander because she or he is in the box wearing the t-shirt right now, and we are allowing them